Welcome to the Robert Wenzel Show. Please stand by for Robert Wenzel.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Wenzel with the Robert Wenzel Show. Today I have a special guest, James Altucher of Altucher Confidential. It's one of my favorite websites. The web address is jamesaltucher.com, ALTUCHER.com. And if you've never been to James' website before, I urge you to go there. Right after you listen to this show, I'll have a link to it on my website. Basically, James talks about life and how to get through life, and when he's made money, when he's lost money, when he's been happy with life, when he's lost women, when he's hooked up with women, and so on and so forth. And I've never seen a website like this before, and chances are you probably will see a lot after this, because James's website is catching on, and you know there's going to be people that will be trying to imitate it. But I've got the real thing on the show, James himself. James, welcome to the Robert Wenzel Show.
Bob, thanks very much. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I want to talk about your site and the amazing things, ups and downs you've gone through. At one time, you talk about having millions of dollars, and then it sounds like you went basically to zero. I don't know if you've ever done it, but have you ever disclosed at your site, exactly how many millions you had? I mean, how big was the drop?
I have never disclosed it, but I'll disclose it here. Basically, I made about $15 million cash, by early 2000, and I proceeded to blow it in such a highly stupid fashion. It was like I was a drunken rock star. I was like Courtney Love on steroids.
Yeah. Now, so you talk about that on your site, and you talk about other things that have happened through your life. Explain the site a little bit, because it's hard for. No one can explain the site better than you can. So what are you doing there?
Yeah, basically, Bob, I think most people are afraid to admit in their daily lives, to their customers, to their family, to their kids, to their spouses, to their bosses or investors or whatever, that they've failed in life, or that they've had a series of failures. So, I kind of view life as, mostly failure punctuated by some successes. And then you want to make sure that when you have those successes, you hold on to them, you build on them, and they carry you from success to success through the inevitable failures and downturns and letdowns and so on. And by being totally honest on my blog about what's happened to me, what my successes and failures have been, and how I've been able to get off the floor when I've literally been in the fetal position, crying, contemplating suicide. Maybe this is too much information, but when I've literally been in this position, how do you take that first step to get off the floor? And there's lots of ways to look at it, and that's what I write about.
Okay, James, let's start from the beginning. I mean, how did you make $15 million? $15 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I was a beneficiary of the internet boom. I knew nothing about business at all. In fact, my first job in New York City, I was interviewing prostitutes for a living for HBO, and I sort of morphed that into creating websites for entertainment companies. It was just me and one other person, and then gradually more and more entertainment companies wanted me to build websites for them, and then some other companies like AmericanExpress.com. And of all things, I did every gangster rap label. I did Bad Boy Records, Loud Records, Death Row Records, and so on. I did most of the movie studios, ranging from Miramax.com, Newline.com. I did work for Warner Brothers, like the website for the movie The Matrix. And then, of course, I did some traditional websites like AmericanExpress.com, ConEdison.com, and others. I built it up pretty substantially. I think my main mistake there was I was profitable from day one. I was profitable every single month, rather than most of my colleagues had massively unprofitable companies and then were able to go public for billions. But I sold my company on a multiple of those earnings and made a good amount of money.
Yeah. All right. So did you sell it for cash or for stock? I mean, was this 15?
I sold it for stock. The stock went up. I sold the stock, and I had the cash in the bank.
So you had $15 million cash in the bank, and it went to zero?
Yeah, and then I went to zero. I am the stupidest person you will ever have on your radio show.
I don't know. I'm thinking of having a couple of high-profile banksters on the show, so that might...
I mean, I figured, okay, I'm such a genius. I made all this money. I'm probably a genius in everything else, and I made all this money on the internet. So let's try this strategy. I'm going to buy every single internet stock out there and leverage up to buy them, and I'm going to do that in March 2000. So it was probably the worst investment strategy since the beginning of time. And as things went down, I started an internet company, and I figured, okay, well, all these stocks are going down for me, but at least I'll sell my new internet company, or I will IPO it or something. But of course, that didn't happen because the internet bust totally wiped out all the internet companies, and things just went from bad to worse. I lost my house, I lost my marriage, I lost family, friends. All of my friends who were happy to wine and dine me during the glory days stopped returning my phone calls. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I couldn't. At the very bottom, I couldn't take money out of my ATM machine, and I couldn't borrow $100 from my best friend. So it really couldn't get worse financially for me. I had 2 kids to raise, and my expenses, because I was, not living super large, but living larger than I ever had before. My expenses were much more than a regular job could pay for me, and I deserved every piece of punishment I got from that.
Wow. Well, let's start at the beginning. I mean, how were you able to get American Express and Games? I mean, there are tons and tons of webmasters out there, people designing websites and all that sort of thing, and they would love to just have one rap client or one corporate client like America. How did you get enough to sell it for $15 million in the first place?
Well, it's an interesting arbitrage that was happening. This was in the mid-'90s. So I'll give you a funny example. Well, first off, nobody knew how to make a website except me and like maybe 10 other people in the mid-'90s in New York City. So it wasn't a common skill. And eventually they started, I knew the writing was on the wall around 1998 when junior high school students were telling me they were taking classes on how to make websites. I knew I couldn't charge $200,000 for a 5-page website forever, so I figured I'd sell the business and cash out as quickly as possible. So I made every smart decision predicting the future that you could possibly make. I really was like smart about it. And then suddenly I got caught up in kind of either the ego or the contagion of it, but I got swept up into the internet boom just like anybody else, and I lost everything. And I think it was because I was young, I didn't have any experience, I didn't know anything about business, and it was hard. So as to how I got these sites, well, again, nobody knew how to make websites, so I had an opportunity through networking. I started to know a lot of people, and I was already building websites as an employee for HBO, so that kind of helped me build a name in the space. I met more and more people, again, networking. I did the website for the Soros magazine, which was a big music and rap-related magazine, so that introduced me to all the record labels, and I would push on every networking opportunity. Networking is everything in sales.
Yeah, so let's focus a little bit on that because, I mean, there's probably a lot of people out there that have ideas but never follow through on them or know how to develop them. I mean, how does this networking work? How do you see it? What's the key to it?
The key is, imagine a chair, and a chair's got 4 legs. And if any one of the legs go, the chair's going to fall, so you can't sit on it. So the 4 legs to the chair are physical. You have to be healthy. You have to work on your health. You have to exercise. You have to eat well. You have to sleep well. If you're sick and unhealthy, you're not going to get clients. You're not going to get customers. You're not going to have relationships, and you're not going to make friends. We know this to be true. So emotionally, you have to have positive and inspiring people around you. Mentally, you have to be an idea machine to beat your competition. And I'm not just saying you have to come up with ideas. You have to be a real machine. And that takes time to build up that idea muscle. It's something that I recommend people start today. It takes a long time to develop it up. And finally, you have to have a spiritual sense of the world, not necessarily believing in an old man with a beard, but you have to have a sense of surrender. Like, okay, I've done everything I can. Now I leave it up to something other than me to take care of things. And those are the four legs of essentially building up sales ability and networking ability. So, for instance, feeling a sense of gratitude towards the positive people around you puts you into a mindset where you want good things to happen to them. So you start introducing them, you start networking them together. And when you're networking people want to help you. When you give, you receive. And so when you help people want to help you. And that helps with sales. The other thing that helps with sales is being able to handle rejection. So I was rejected an enormous number of times, not only when I was trying to get a girlfriend, but when I was trying to get customers or when I was trying to start businesses. Rejection and failure is a part of life, and people have a hard time acknowledging that, and they also have a hard time dealing with that. How do you get up off the floor if you've been rejected 40 times in a row?
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important there, James. As far as persistence to keep on, as far as, if something goes wrong, I mean, it's just sort of a numbers game out there. You just have to keep at it and realize that somewhere along the line, someone will like your idea, someone will decide to go along with you, you'll get a break somewhere, but if you're just sitting around, it's not going to happen. I mean, is that the way you see it?
And that happens with everything in life. So, for instance, I'll go back to my first company for a second, but this also worked for my second and third company. So, I wanted to sell my first company when I saw the writing on the wall. I approached Omnicom, which is a big advertising agency, and they said, you're a little too early. So what did I do? I had a rejection. I didn't go home and cry, but every couple of weeks I would send them an update. Here's the new customers I've gotten. Here's the number of employees I have now. Here were my revenues last month. And I would just keep them updated. I kept my name in front of them. And then when they were starting to look more seriously at acquisitions, I was the first company they were looking at that point because I had kept in touch with them. I kept in front of their face. Now, they didn't buy my company, but I was able to use the interest that was generated off of their interest to basically shop my company around. At the end of the day, I had about 5 or 6 offers, and I took the best one.
Wow, that's good. Now, tell me a little bit about how you shopped it around. I mean, did you just send emails out to people, or how did you contact people? Did you have a broker doing it for you, or?
I had everything. Everybody I spoke to knew I was for sale, and sometimes people are shy saying that they're for sale. Sometimes you don't always get the price if you don't always get the best price if you admit you're for sale. But I was honest and I said, look, I want to make some money. I've been working hard, and I want my organization to be part of a bigger organization, so I don't have to focus so much on the nuts and bolts of running a business. I don't want to have to think that I pay the insurance company for health insurance for all my employees every month. Did I pay the landlord this month? There's a lot of details of running a business that I didn't want to deal with. And so I felt like, I was honest. I want to make money, but I also want to be part of a larger organization. And by the way, I'm delivering to you the entire entertainment industry. So take it or leave it. And that helps. And that type of philosophy has helped every single time I've sold a company, or every single time I've sold myself. It's the same techniques work. You put the word out there, and you sit back, and if you've done the right things, the universe, works in motion to help you. And I'm not trying to be kind of spiritual or new age, but that's the reality of what works. Now, when I say sit back, it doesn't mean I stayed in bed and waited for somebody to come up with millions of dollars. I was going to every meeting. I was participating in every process. I must have gone to dozens of meetings, about selling my company. Right. So I put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sure there were times where someone gave the impression, it was crazy or it wouldn't make any sense to sell it. I mean, so you just continued moving on. I mean, is that it, or did that happen in your situation?
Yeah. Like, I'll tell you, the very first time I got into the process, and this sort of changed my life and my attitude towards it. My first client was HBO, and they were my first client because they were also my employer at the exact same time that I started my company. So I sort of started my company on the side while I was an employee at HBO, and then eventually I made the jump. And HBO wanted to buy the company, but and I was very excited about it because I had maybe $3 in my bank account, and I wanted to make some money. But I couldn't get them to buy my company for any price. They knew they were the only buyer, so they kind of kept leading me on. And I decided then and there, I am never going to depend on just one entity, person, company, institution for my happiness and my success. And that was the last time that happened. So every time I've done something since then, it's because I have multiple balls that I'm juggling.
Okay, so now how did you feel? So you sell your company, you got 15 million, and then you're down to zero. I mean, how do you feel at that point? What happens? How did you?
Oh, Bob, I'm getting a stomach ache thinking about it. I'm gonna throw up in a second. Like I felt so bad. I was literally I couldn't sleep. I never slept that whole for 2 years. You know, I lived right next to literally right next door to the World Trade Center, and I had to put up my apartment for sale. Then the World Trade Center bombing horribly happened. I mean, it was horrible for all the families involved, particularly the ones that died in the bombing. But the one outcome that happened for me was I couldn't sell my apartment right when I went broke. It took me 14 months after 9/11 for me to sell my apartment, and I was already broke on 9/11. So I had to do something. I had to start coming up with ideas, or else I was going to lose family and everything. I had 2 kids to support. So I started writing down ideas. And at first I was writing down bad ideas, but I had to come up with ideas that were going to save my life, that were going to help me. So eventually, let's call it 3 months later, 3 months of solid writing ideas down every single day, I came up with ideas of software I could write to model the stock market. So here I had just lost 15 million on the stock market, but I came up with ideas for software to take the emotions out, software that would trade the markets. The software worked, and I managed to stay alive and ultimately build a business around trading for other investors, writing about the markets, and so on. And it was this process of coming up with ideas, staying healthy, being grateful for what I had, that kind of created the philosophy that I really live by now. And I don't miss a day of practicing what I call the daily practice, which is making sure physically I'm in shape, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah. Now we were talking earlier, and you told me you bought 100 waiters books.
Yeah. So I went to webrestaurantsupplies.com. I don't even know if that site still exists, and I bought 100 waiters pads for 10 cents each. And so it was great because you can't. It's not like you can write a novel on a waiter's pad. You can only make a list. Right. What waiters use it for, and they fit in your pants pocket really easily. So anytime I had an idea, I could write them down. Also, it's great in meetings because at the top of a waiter's pad is the shape of different configuration tables, so I could write down who was who was in position number 1, 2, 3 around the table. It's great for meetings. But I started writing down ideas, and they had to be actionable ideas. I couldn't just write down, oh, I'm going to start an airline, because I would have no next step. But I could say, oh, I'm going to analyze what happens when the stock market gaps down on the first of every month. I had software that I could write to analyze that. Or later on in life, I could write an article or make a dating website, or I can make a website about this, or I can invest in this company, or I could approach these investors for a fund of hedge funds I was setting up. So it was always useful coming up with not just ideas, but actionable ideas. And I'll tell you, muscles atrophy. If you got into a car accident and you were in bed for 2 weeks, you wouldn't be able to walk without physical therapy. It's the same thing with the idea muscle. You have to start exercising your idea muscle today. So it has to hurt. Just like exercise has to hurt to be worthwhile, you have to come up with, okay, I'm going to come up with ideas today about X. And it has to be hard to come up with 10 ideas, or else you're not really feeling the burn, as they say. So to develop that idea muscle, it really will change your life, but it's hard work. And when I say it will change your life, within 1 month, you'll stop having bad ideas. Within 3 months, you'll be an idea machine. And within 6 months of doing a daily practice of this, your life will be completely different. My life 6 months ago was completely different than it is now. And I'll be honest, every 6 months it's completely different because I do this.
Yeah. Now, what's a bad idea? What do you mean by a bad idea?
Well, I'll tell you a bad idea that I had. There was this website that was very popular in 2005, 2004, 2006 called hotornot.com. So I don't know if you remember the site. People would upload their picture, and then other people would judge on a scale of 0 to 10 if this person, male or female, usually female, was hot or not.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was run out of one server in somebody's apartment, James Hong's apartment, and he made millions off of it. It became a dating site also. So I said, okay, I'm going to come up with a site similar to this, and I called it smartorstupid.com. And people would upload their picture, and they would take an IQ test that I developed. And then you would arrive at the site, and you would have to decide, is this person smart or stupid? And you would rank the person, and then you would see their IQ scores from the test. And then you could communicate with them if you signed up for the site. So it would be like a dating site. So my 6-year-old daughter at the time said to me, isn't this kind of mean? And she was right. Like, it was kind of mean, and I never got any traction off of it. It was a bad idea. But, I generated 10 ideas at the same time. I built 10 websites at the same time. So I knew if one site didn't gain traction, maybe another site would. And that was the story of that bad idea.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. How important is it for somebody just starting out to have money to put into a project? I mean, do you think a project can be started with very little money, or what's your thought on that?
Projects can be started with almost no money right now. For stockpicker.com, which I sold for millions to thestreet.com, I used scriptlance.com to do I spec'd out the site, used scriptlance.com to reverse auction. So programmers would bid cheaper and cheaper. I'll do your site. No, I'll do your site for even cheaper. No, I'll do your site for even cheaper. I didn't pick the cheapest guy, but I picked one of the cheapest guys. I offshored to India and built the site, the entire first draft of the site, to the point where I was having, thousands of users a day, and it ultimately grew to millions of users. The first version of the site cost me $2,500.
Wow.
Now I know other people who've built entire companies for $0. I literally know one guy who's 17 now. When he was 12, he built his first business for nothing, and he made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of it.
Wow. So now, what is it? I mean, I have ideas flowing all the time. You have the ideas. We seem to be on the same wavelength as far as that. You're talking about somebody that's started the first business at 12. Why are we doing this and other people can't? Can they learn it? Is it what's missing? Why aren't they doing what we're doing?
Well, I think people have a lot of fear. There's a whole mythology of corporate safety. And it's part of the American mythology that if you work for a company like IBM, you're safe forever. But, look at the people at GM. General Motors was one of the most profitable companies in the world in the 1980s, and then it went bankrupt a few years ago. And every middle manager in the company, note, I say middle manager, the union members turned out okay, and executive management turned out okay. But all of the middle managers lost their whole life savings, they lost their pensions, they lost their health insurance. The myth of corporate safety is over. So, so I think a lot of people, though, are afraid to make that leap, even though it's actually safer to develop multiple streams of income, to come up with ideas, but they're afraid to develop that idea muscle. But again, if you do this kind of daily practice that I outlined, your whole life really will be different within 6 months, and you will have the potential to develop those multiple streams of income. You have to have confidence that it works, or else you'll be too disappointed or too afraid to try, but it does work, and I get testimonials every day. Note, by the way, I'm talking almost like I'm some kind of self-help guy. I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to get anybody to do anything. My book costs $1 on Amazon, so it's not like I make any money on books. I just honestly want to help people do these ideas. I think the more people who do these ideas, the better America will be. I care more about people being innovative and inventive and creative than I care about the economy. Because regardless of the economy, if you are in the top 0.1% of creative people out there and aggressive people out there and ambitious people, you'll make a lot of money.
Yeah. So James, I think these qualities of persistence and creativeness and having the ideas are even more important as the economy gets crazier, as government regulations make it more difficult for people to go through traditional means of success and things like that. I mean, if you're creative, you've got an opportunity to do things where you just may see an opening that didn't exist even a month ago, say, in some cases. I mean, is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you a question. So Groupon, everybody has criticisms about Groupon. They all say, oh, there's no moat around it. Living Social could compete with it. Google can compete with it. It's overvalued. But the reality is Groupon is the fastest revenue growing company in history, in the history of the planet. No company has ever grown revenues faster than Groupon. So here's the question. What month did Groupon start? Do you know, Bob?
No, I don't. No.
Well, okay. So Groupon started in November 2008. So
Okay.
the worst month in financial history since the Great Depression, Groupon started. So clearly that guy did not care at all about the economy. He didn't care about Lehman Brothers collapsing, a month or two earlier. He didn't care that Goldman Sachs was putting out reports saying the world was falling apart. He started his business because he was being creative. He had an idea that was unique, and it became enormously successful, and now he's a billionaire. So, if you're creative, everybody else is sick, okay? And I don't mean this in a bad way. Like, I don't mean they're, like, sick perverted or they're sick unhealthy. But in general, very few people are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually have got their act together. If you do, you're in the top 1/1000th of 1%, and you're going to succeed at a business. You're going to be an idea machine, and you're going to know how to execute on those ideas, and you're going to succeed at some of them. You're also going to fail. No matter how much you've got it together, you're going to fail, but you also are going to have the tools to say, okay, well, I'm depressed today. It really sucks to fail, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it again tomorrow.
Wow. So you're saying, so even if somebody already has a business started, you're saying, the ideas can't stop. They have to continue flowing for the business and how to expand it and grow it and what to do with it and that type of thing?
Exactly. And I'll give you two examples. The first example is Groupon again. He started that out as a way for charities to keep in touch with each other. So obviously he changed the model when it failed. Maybe he got depressed for a few weeks, but then he said, okay, let's try something else. And so he sent out emails to all the customers who had signed up and said, here, you could have 20% off at McDonald's. I'm making this part up. And everybody responded, and he started making money, and it was profitable or it was generating revenues immediately. So another company I've invested in, I invested in 2007. They failed miserably at their first business model. They were creating games on Facebook, and Zynga wiped them off the planet. So gosh, 2008 was a year later. It was impossible to raise money, but they changed their business model to one that was self-sustaining, and then that business model itself wasn't scalable. So they changed it even again to something that became scalable, and now they're one of the fastest-growing Facebook platforms out there, and they're enormously successful. So you're always in the market for ideas. You're always thinking of ways to help your customers, to help your shareholders, and so on. So I think that process never ends.
Yes.
Every day, and if you don't follow the daily practice, you'll fall apart. I'm not saying this as a threat, because again, I have nothing to do with it. But I know for myself, when I don't stay healthy, when I don't, in all these various ways, I'll fall apart and stop generating ideas, start losing contacts, stop networking, and it won't be good for me.
So what's the toughest thing for you right now? I mean, is it getting to the gym? You talk about exercise and health. I mean, is it creating ideas or writing your posts? What's the hardest thing for you to do, and how do you motivate yourself to do it?
Well, I think about my blog probably 10 to 12 hours a day, and I'm also an investor in about a dozen different companies, but I invest somewhat passively. So I hope always that they do well, and I'm always willing to help them, but they're pretty much on their own. So I think about my blog up to 12 hours a day, and I tend to write. I write every single day, 2,000 words a day. I don't post every day. I post about 4 times a week, but it takes a long time for me to consistently come up with good ideas for the blog, and I write these long form posts of 2,000 words. So that's my challenge every morning when I wake up is I have confidence I'll come up with the idea, but then I have to actually come up with what am I going to write about today? And that's always a challenge.
Okay, so that's more of a challenge for you than, I mean, do you go to the gym? Is that part of your routine to stay healthy, or you don't do that, or I'm just...
Absolutely. So every morning when I wake up, I read to kind of get inspiration. Then I'll write for 2 or 3 hours, and I'll start writing on any idea. And usually my posts are lists of ideas. So that's how I keep the idea muscle going. And then and then the rest of the day I'm either reading or thinking about where can I guest post my blog, how can I generate traffic, how can I get the word out there, and I'm also still constantly reading and trying to think of new ideas for blog posts.
Yeah.
And again, also I network a lot. So if I think to myself, well, I just met a guy at The Economist, he should really be taking a look at Bob Wenzel's website, I'll introduce the two. So I'm always trying to network and introduce the two. While we've been doing this radio show, I've introduced 6 different people, via email while we've been talking. So that's an ongoing throughout the day process for me is networking.
James, that's impressive because, I mean, you're talking away. So if you're sending emails out at this time, very impressive. What do you...
I'm a good multitasker.
Wow. Okay. What do you read for inspiration when you get up in the morning? You say you read
I read 2 types of things. One is I read really great writers because I want to be a really great writer. So if I read bad you are what you eat. So we eat food and we also eat emotions. So if you're around positive people, you're going to digest positive inspiration as opposed to negative inspiration. If you're around people who have lots of ideas, you're going to digest those ideas, and those ideas will mate with the ideas that you have. So coming up with ideas is not only coming up with yours, but figuring out how your ideas mate with the ideas of others to generate maybe the genius idea that makes money. So, so I'm constantly reading strong voices that will make my writing better. And then I also read texts that are not just good writers, but inspirational texts. And they might be texts that are thousands of years old, and I'll apply that to modern times and see how it resonates. It's sort of like, I'm going to make an analogy with Justin Bieber. So everybody our age, Bob, hates Justin Bieber. Nobody likes listening to him sing. Like our little girls like him, maybe or maybe not. But if Justin Bieber were to sing a cover of the Beatles song Yesterday, it would be a huge mega hit because Yesterday is a song that resonates through time. So in the past 50 years since Yesterday was first sung by the Beatles, 10,000 other songs were created, and Yesterday is the one that resonates. So I try to find texts that resonate or books that resonate with people over maybe 10 years, maybe thousands of years, and see how they apply to modern times because I know they will then resonate on my blog as well and to my readers as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned you're an investor in some companies. Were you an investor in Groupon, or were you just using that as an example?
I was just using that as an example. Okay. I wish I had been an investor
in
I
was going to say,
Groupon.
Yeah, you shouldn't be multitasking if you were. But the companies you're investing in, what's most important? I mean, is it the idea? Is it the CEO behind it? I mean, what do you look for when you decide to make an investment?
Absolutely, the CEO is the most important thing. You have to know that this is the type of guy who can change business models on a dime, constantly check himself to make sure he's not smoking crack on a bad idea, and be able to morph into more scalable ideas. So I'm always looking for strong CEOs. And someone's a strong CEO on paper if they've done it before. So that's an important thing. I also consider myself the dumbest person in the room. So I always try to co-invest with people who are smarter than me. I don't want to be the fish at the table, the only guy who thinks such and such company is a great company. Now that would have kept me out of many good companies potentially, but I always try to invest with very strong investors. So that's important. And the other thing I look for is strong demographic trends. So in August of 2007, I remember I went on CNBC and I said that Facebook was going to be worth $100 billion at some point. and they were all laughing hysterically. And they kept playing this clip of Jeff Bezos laughing hysterically because he has this weird laugh. And nobody believed me. But now, in the secondary markets, Facebook's already approaching $100 billion in value. This was a strong demographic trend that I was seeing, so I started investing in companies that specialize in marketing on Facebook, and they've all done very well.
Wow, that's so you didn't get into the Facebook directly, but you said, hey, this is big, and so immediately it clicked in your head, I'm going to look at companies that are going to serve Facebook. Is that how your thought process went?
Exactly. So one of my investments is one of the fastest growing platforms on Facebook, where they offer their platform to companies to manage their marketing campaigns on Facebook. And so it's like a platform as a service. They're growing, hands over fist. And they've just raised $54 million. I got in the seed round at a $4 million valuation.
Wow, really? Now, you mentioned you sold your website to Street.com to Jim Cramer. How did you make the connection with Jim Cramer? Did you know him and go to school with him?
No. So I didn't know him at all. Well, I knew him when I sold the company, but in 2002, again, I was dying. I really thought I was gonna die or have to kill myself in order for my kids to live off the life insurance policy. So I had to do something because I didn't want to die. So I started coming up with ideas of, all sorts of people I wanted to meet in the finance space because my trading at that point was doing well. My software-based trading was doing well. So I started sending emails to George Soros, Carl Icahn, Stevie Cohen, and of course, none of them replied. They weren't all that eager to have me buy lunch for them so they could help me out with my career. And so I said, well, what am I doing wrong here? And this was kind of in my first month of coming up with bad ideas. So my bad ideas was that these people would be happy to take me out to lunch and let me talk to them. So I started coming up with ideas for them. So to someone like a George Soros, I would analyze 10 stocks in depth that I thought he should buy, and I would give him the analysis for free, and I wouldn't ask for anything back. For a Jim Cramer, I would write, here's 10 ideas for articles, Jim, that you could write. And he wrote back, this is fantastic. Why don't you start writing them? So I didn't get paid any money, but I started writing for TheStreet.com. And gradually, they started paying me to write articles for them. And gradually, I did a newsletter for them. And I started doing more articles per week for them. And eventually, StockPicker.com, I showed them the idea. They wanted to be a part of it. I gave them 50% of the company. In exchange, they would fill up all the advertising space on my site, and they would drive traffic to the site. And eventually, they bought the site. So coming up with ideas and giving them out for free resulted 5 years later in me making millions of dollars because of that relationship I developed. But that was a 5-year cultivation where I had to give an enormous amount of ideas for free to them, and it worked. And it always works.
Yeah. One thing that struck me in your comment just now, James, is you said you gave 50% to Street.com. Now, I know a lot of people when they're first starting something out, they're so hesitant to give up any part of what they're doing, and this seemed to turn out well for you. That's part of your philosophy?
Yes. I actually had an employee who quit on me because he thought I shouldn't have given anything, or I shouldn't have given more than 5% to TheStreet.com. But 50% of something is better than 5% of nothing. Another guy even wrote a blog post analyzing why did James Altucher give up 50% of his company to TheStreet.com. But I'll tell you, when we announced our relationship, I also called up Google, Yahoo, AOL, Forbes, and Reuters, and I said, okay, I'm for sale now. So at least my 50% is for sale. And TheStreet.com, Jim Cramer was like, we can't let Google own 50% of this. And so they were kind of committed at that point. 50%, they had more than just a taste. They were halfway through the meal, and they wanted the dessert. So they had to buy the rest of my company. So we announced our relationship on January 1st, 2007, and we actually closed the acquisition on April 27th, 2007.
Wow. So talk about networking. How I know you think it's very important. How do you go about it? Why is it important?
It's very important because a network itself, and this is true from everything from computer science to social networking to entrepreneurship networking to business networking, a network increases in value exponentially as the number of nodes on the network increase linearly. So when you go from 10 people that you network with to 11 people, you've just doubled the value of your network. That's how it works. And I've seen that work in practice. So every day I try to introduce people that I think, not just blindly, because you don't want to waste anyone's time, but because then your value of your network goes down if people view you as a waste of time. But I try to think of things, so-and-so has a company, another person has a bigger company, maybe they could do a deal together, or maybe one person could buy another person. Or so-and-so has a block of Twitter shares they want to sell, another person wants to buy Twitter shares, I could introduce them. Or a reporter's doing a story on this hedge fund, I know an employee at this hedge fund, I'll introduce them. So I try to always figure out ways I can help the people who are already in my network. I'll give you an example of one of the best networkers out there. We all know him, Mark Cuban, sold whatever it was, broadcast.com, made billions, owns the Dallas Mavericks, made, billions more. I don't know him from anything, but, maybe over the past decade, we've exchanged emails 3 times. So I wrote him an email the other day, literally the other day, and I said, how is it that you can return emails so quickly? It's so hard for me to do that. How do you do it? And within 1 minute, I got a response from Mark Cuban, and the response was old habits. So getting into so this was very inspiring to me. This guy did respond very quickly, and getting into the habit of introducing people, responding to people, coming up with ideas for people. These are all muscles, again, that we have to develop and cultivate and strengthen so that we become in the top 1/10% of people. And everyone else is average. So if you are developing yourself in all these different ways, you're going to become so far above average that success becomes automated. And it just flows to you like the universe will make it happen. And that, again, that almost sounds new agey. I don't intend it to be, but that's what happens.
Wow. So this is something that you've learned, you've developed since you've lost the money? I mean, is it a continuing learning process? Do you expect to learn more and know how to approach things better, say a month, a year from now, or?
Yeah, because I look at myself, probably the past 17 different businesses I've tried, maybe 15 of them have failed. So you have to it's a constant process of coming up with ideas, being positive, lifting yourself up when things go down, staying healthy, because, if you're negative and depressed, you're also going to get unhealthy. It's easier to get unhealthy. Keeping a certain amount of spiritual health, keeping positive people in your life, all of these things come together, and it's a nonstop process. I have failed many times since 2002. I failed in businesses in 2005, in 2008, in 2009, probably in 2010. I can't remember. Certainly in 2011. You have to always keep positive and keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you fail at something at this point, are you down, or do you just know it's part of life at this point and you move on? I mean, what's your mental attitude now? Is it different from way back?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No. Is your mental attitude different from? I mean, when you took the big hit, or when you were younger and you lost money, or whatever the situation might have been, and now something happens to you. I mean, you just sort of take it with a better attitude now, because you just know the next deal may be the one that works for you, or?
No, I mean, if something fails for me, I get depressed. I started a company in early 2009. It was a bad idea. It was called 140love.com. And I figured I would make a dating site that sits on top of Twitter. But I concluded, so I went out there and I raised money. I raised about close to $1 million that was supposed to close on a certain day. I think it was in May 2009. And the day the money was supposed to come in, I kind of woke up and I was thinking, this is a bad idea. On a dating site, people are anonymous, and on Twitter, people aren't anonymous. So my dating site's not going to work. And unless Twitter wanted to buy it, nobody was going to buy it. So I would spend the next 2 years of my life losing people's money and being miserable about it. So I woke up that morning and I knew I couldn't. Not only had I already put $40,000 into building up kind of a network of sites and initial advertising and so on. I had overspent, but I was going to turn away $1 million that day. So I woke up, I was practically shaking, and I was depressed, and I was upset about it, but I had to call everybody and say, I am not going to start this business, and it's a bad idea. I'm just being honest with you. And I was depressed. Took a couple of weeks, say, to get over that, and then you start over.
Wow. Now, as far as I know your view on college, that you think most people is probably makes sense for them to travel or do something else. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think for a young ambitious person, nobody knows what they want to do when they're 18 years old. So you have two choices. You either get into massive student loan debt, and for the first time ever now, student loan debt is bigger than credit card debt. So America, the country of innovation and creativity, is turning into America, the country of indentured debt slaves, particularly of our most creative citizens. So you don't really want to take that route if you're a young person who doesn't yet know what they want to do. So a much better route is to do almost anything else. So travel around the world. Yes, that costs money, but it costs less money than going to college. Or intern at a hospital, or get a job, or work as an assistant to a secretary at a big corporation, so you see what corporate America actually looks like. Or start a business. Again, starting a business is cheap. You'll spend less than college. I started StockPicker.com with $2,500. You could start a company even cheaper now using WordPress and other tools. You could start a company for free. So there are so many options for ambitious young people to get actual life experience and maybe even make some money, or even better yet, have an opportunity to fail, because you don't really have many of those opportunities in college to massively fall on your face and fail. And you also don't have opportunities in college to come up with ideas and sell ideas or fail to sell ideas. So many different opportunities. And why not get a 5-year head start without debt on all of your peers who are too afraid of the real world out there, so they lock themselves in the same demographic prison they've been in the prior 18 years and, really go out there and get experience.
Well, okay, James, what about the person who takes your advice and decides to travel? I mean, what should they look for as far as that is concerned? What should they be doing when they travel?
Well, you just spent 12 school years with people of the exact same demographic as you, more or less, the same ethnic demographic, the same, your parents are all commuting into the city. You're doing, like I grew up in New Jersey, so all of my friends' parents worked at companies in New York. We were all basically the same ethnic demographic. So why not find a country which is super cheap and completely demographically different from the country you just grew up in, and go there. So I'll just throw out an example. India. Why don't you, let's say you're like me and you were an out of shape Jewish kid growing up in the suburbs of New York. What if I had gone to India for a year and studied yoga? What a mind-blowing experience that would have been. I would have learned so much, not necessarily how to start a business, but I would have learned about life, and I would have gotten in physical shape, and I would have had interesting experiences to talk about that I would have carried with me for the rest of my life. As it is, I did what everyone else does their freshman year of college, which is, we all know it's almost unrepeatable what people do their freshman year of college. So, but that's what parents are willing to spend money on because they think it will lead to happiness. We've all learned that having a great college degree doesn't lead to happiness. Owning a home doesn't lead to happiness. Voting for the right presidential leader doesn't lead to happiness. Going to war with Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever doesn't lead to happiness. So you kind of have to find happiness internally. It's never going to come from a college degree. There's no degree for happiness.
James, a great note to end on. Thank you very much for doing this show. I really appreciate it. Your insights are, I think, extremely valuable for anybody who's out there just trying to find their way, trying to find how to succeed in a world where the old programs don't work anymore. The college degree that launches you on a career just doesn't work. And James, your advice is valuable here on this show. And you do it a few times a week at your website, which is James Altucher, ALTUCHER.com. And you've got a new book out called I Was Blind, But Now I See. James also has a number of other books out there. One is called How to Be the Luckiest Person Alive. He wrote a book, The Wall Street Journal Guide to Investing in the Apocalypse. I reviewed that book. I'll put a link to it on my site when this show is up, so you just look for it under the show. James, I appreciate very much your coming on the show. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I always enjoy your site and following it. It's one of the only sites I go to, really, and it's certainly been a pleasure being on your show.
Great. Thanks very much, James. I appreciate it. That's my show for this week. Be sure to check back every Sunday. I have a new show at the Robert Wenzel site. You can find it by going to robertwenzelshow.com. All my archives are there also. And for those of you that are new to the site and to the show, please know that I also have another site called economicpolicyjournal.com, where I write about the economy in blog form every day. Post all day long, so you know what's going on in Europe with the Eurozone crisis, what's going on with inflation, unemployment, the business cycle and stock market here in the United States. That's economicpolicyjournal.com, updated every day, 7 days a week, all day long. I look forward to seeing you there, and hope you can join me next week. Thanks.